Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Fireside Chat with Saeed Amidi, founder and CEO at Plug and Play Tech Center, and Julian Jäger, CEO at Vienna International Airport. My name is Ben. I'm co-director here at Plug and Play Vienna, and I have the pleasure to introduce you to our two panelists and to thank you all for joining us today. I actually think we could not have chosen a more interesting day for this conversation. I actually just talked to Julian. We talked about the good news from yesterday. Pfizer and BioNTech announced preliminary results that should suggest that their vaccine was more than 90% effective. These news, of course, had a massive effect on the public markets, particularly on companies hit hard by the crisis, such as airports and airlines, etc. The final results of the US election are considered good news for the travel industry by many. So I think this is actually a great day for a cautiously optimistic outlook on the future of travel. Our guest today, Julian Jäger, is CEO at Vienna International Airport, an airport that I would argue is better than most airports prepared to overcome these difficult times. Under his leadership, the airport has diversified the business. They lowered their carbon footprint significantly, and they double down on innovation, for example, by bringing Plug and Play to the airport city, where I'm sitting right at the moment. Just one last note before I hand over to Saeed. We will have some time for questions at the end, so please use this opportunity and the Q&A function to ask your questions. That's it from my side already. Saeed and Julian, thank you so much for taking the time today. I am really looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben. Julian, it's great talking to you over Zoom, and I hope I can come and see you in Vienna airport very soon. Julian, when I visited your facility, you were sort of building a new building, new technology building, and we saw that innovation is very important to you and to your team. Can you tell me currently what innovation focus area you are working on, and what is important for Vienna Airport at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Saeed. Good afternoon to all those located in Europe. It's a pleasure to talk to you. It's a pleasure to have you as a partner with Vienna Airport, and we are very happy that your Plug and Play team is located in our airport city in Vienna. I have to agree with Ben that yesterday's news was really a big relief. I think not only for the airport industry, but for the whole travel industry, travel and aviation industry. I think in Germany and Austria, we are pretty much in the second lockdown phase, and this reflects directly into the passenger numbers. So the outlook that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, that there should be a vaccine available in the next few months, and being distributed in quite big numbers next year. This was definitely a very welcome news, not only for the stock exchange, but as well for us in Vienna Airport. I think to a certain extent, obviously, this COVID-19 crisis changed our perception of innovation, and different fields of innovation became more relevant than probably a couple of months ago. I think in general, the three things which an airport has to focus on is on the one hand, obviously, diversification of revenues. I think most airports around the globe tried in the last years very hard to diversify and become less dependent on passenger numbers. Obviously, your costs are extremely important because this is the one thing you have under control. And I think this crisis shows us very clearly that you have a very, very, very limited impact on the passenger numbers. You're dependent on so much areas around you, on the airline sector, and how the tourism market in your destination does, on the economy, on many things which are far beyond your control. And so I think to diversify and keep your costs under control are two extremely or the most important areas as an airport manager. I think, and it feels like very, very long ago, but 8 months ago, our biggest worry was how can we survive this summer with record passenger numbers we anticipated. So if I look back the last few years, a major focus in innovation was always to make processes faster so that the use of space would be less, and to have more to be in a position to get more passengers through your airport. I think today this has changed. I mean, most airports in the middle of the crisis have enough space. So now I think one important driver of innovation is obviously to make processes cheaper. I think this is an opportunity as well for startups, for small companies, smart companies, and not necessarily the big monopolists to a certain extent, which dominate the airport IT sector in the last decades, which are very reliable, but usually pretty expensive as well. A second area which we did not have in our focus, obviously, was the check of the health status of passengers, health checks, tests. We're doing around 1,000 tests, PCR tests at the airport now consistently for the last few months. We just started recently to do antigen quick tests at the airport for specified flights. But I strongly believe that the area to check the health status from passengers arriving from abroad, this is an issue which will remain. And I think there we definitely need technology to support this process and make this process quicker in the future. So I think everything which has to do with touchless processes, biometrics, those are areas which will change travel in the future. And one last point, I think, which is very important as well, and which has not changed now for decades, is the luggage process. So I think this is an area where I believe there's definitely room in the future for innovation, and where the airport experience should change in the future.
You know, actually, I personally traveled about 3 weeks ago to Europe and back, and felt quite safe at the airport, especially in the plane. I felt quite safe, you know. And you mentioned, you know, Vienna Airport City, like it's a little city that people transit through. And we have known that, for example, in Far East, the cities and the countries have dealt with this so much better than, for example, we have done in US. You know, as a small airport city, do you feel how much effect you can have with testing more passengers, more employees? How can we build the confidence of the people to travel again, people like myself?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that you have clear rules and you police them. And I think this is sometimes in the political arena the regulations people have to adhere to during the COVID-19 crisis are changing all the time. They are very different from one place to the other. So we kept our rules and regulations at the airport from day one the same, and they're still the same. So we never lifted the obligation to wear a mask. We have social distancing from day one. We have got enough possibilities for sanitizers and everything. So I think it's very important that you communicate very clearly what are the regulations for the passengers, and you police them so that you make sure that every passenger adheres to those regulations. I think in principle, flying is the safest public transport mode. So I think, yes, it's not as safe as sitting alone in your car, but it's with the ventilation. There are no reports globally of any major incidents in terms of COVID-19 infections on aircraft. There are no signs that there would be any significant occurrences in this respect. So I think, or I'm convinced that flying in itself is safe. And I think the important thing is to give the passenger the security and a feel of safety in the airport. I think the most important thing is that you have enough space. So people don't like to be crammed, obviously. But I think we are managing quite well here in this respect in Vienna. And I think you mentioned our airport city. I mean, we established a health center 2 years ago in Vienna airport. Now this is of a major advantage because we had all the facilities, we had the doctors, we've got the nurses to do the tests in the airport. And we are significantly faster than all other laboratories in Vienna and Lower Austria. So we are the first one to start the antigen tests on special flights, and we will start together with Austrian Airlines to have mandatory on one flight to Hamburg the antigen test. So every passenger has to have a PCR test or a quick test before they board this flight. So I think we're trying to be innovative in this respect, and I'm sure that on the one hand, obviously the vaccine could be a big game changer, but I think for tourism, for congresses, for conferences, those antigen quick tests can be a major game changer as well. And I hope that in the next few months, we will see more conferences, we will see events like that live again, with people being tested, and then I think the whole travel industry should feel a strong comeback in 2021.
Wonderful. You know, just I did.
Saeed? Hello?
So I think he just froze, but let's just use this opportunity to ask you questions. Oh, I think
Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you well, yes.
But I'm not sure if we lost Julian or no.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask, just to leave the subject of COVID for 2 minutes. I recall you have done a great job at the airport reducing your carbon footprint. You know, you work very diligently in sustainability, and can you please, because we think there is going to be light at the end of this tunnel, I love for the audience to hear what you have done in the past to be one of the cleanest airport I have ever seen, both physically and as well as the carbon footprint.
Yes, thanks a lot. I mean, we reduced between 2011 and 2019 our CO2 footprint by roughly 60% and by more than 70% per passenger. So in absolute number, it was a reduction by 27,000 tons CO2, which is roughly 60% of our total output, and it's more than 70% reduction relative in terms of passenger numbers. So although we increased our passengers by nearly 50% in this time frame, the absolute amount of CO2 emissions was reduced by nearly 60%. So I think this is a big achievement. And I think, I mean, COVID-19 will go away at one point, but I think the climate change will stay. And I think this is, yeah, probably even a bigger challenge for the whole world, or a significantly bigger challenge for the whole world than this COVID-19 crisis. So I think this subject will remain extremely important. And I think we did a lot. We tackled a lot of different areas, and just to mention a few, we optimized the whole cooling and heating of the terminal areas. We implemented LED lighters. We renewed completely our cooling machines. We changed the sourcing of our energy. So our energy sourcing is 100% CO2 free. So we take it. I mean, we are producing with photovoltaic our own energy. So we take it a lot of different areas, and the building Ben is sitting in is probably one of the most CO2 efficient and energy efficient buildings in Austria. So I think this blends in very well with the innovation focus we're having with the partnership with Plug and Play. And we're trying to lift this kind of innovation in the other buildings we are developing as well.
Wonderful. First, again, congratulations. I remember that your pillars go down deep into the ground to bring heat in the winter. And it was one of the amazing buildings I have ever seen. If I can ask Julian, what is the initiative that you're most passionate about? You know, some people during this challenging time, you know, put innovation on hold, and some other people like Vienna Airport almost double down on it and say we need to be more focused on technology and innovation, like you mentioned, for reducing costs or for other reasons. Is there any special projects that you're most passionate about at this time?
I mean, one thing I'm following very closely, obviously, is the antigen tests. I think this is something which could really make a huge difference. So this is something very, very important. And I think where we are pushing our government a lot is the area of checking the health status. So I think what we definitely need, and I always compare this to the security process. September 11th has changed airport processes completely. And until this day, we have procedures in place to tackle terrorism, which was the immediate follow-up on after September 11th. And I think the focus on the health status of a person, this will remain. Even after COVID-19, this will be a major subject. And therefore, I think what we need is using technology, is using new technologies for to check the health status, and this is an area I think where we will need a lot of innovation, because and I think we need international cooperation in this field as well. So I think unfortunately right now, even within the European Union, it's very difficult for countries to cooperate. But what we will need is a global approach to this, and we need global technology to allow the authorities to check the health status of a person if he or she got the vaccine, if there's a test, and I think this could really change the airport processes for the future. And this is something where I strongly believe we will feel the impact of this crisis even in 5 or 10 years.
Yes, I have heard a lot about, health passport, and personally, I think I did my 5th COVID test. Anytime I want to go visit somebody who is a little older than me, or actually, a family member who just it feels safer if you took a test 2 days before and you had the results. And I think this potentially regular testing, regular tracking, where have you been safe, it's going to stay with us for a while. And you can only overcome this challenge with technology. I don't think there is any other
Absolutely.
way we could, make people feel comfortable. If I may, go ahead, please.
No, I think blockchain would be the perfect technology to tackle this, because I think what we would need is a technology which makes sure that all the tests you're doing are saved somewhere, and we made sure that it was actually you who took the test, but without allowing the authorities to go into the detail. At least in Europe, this is a big issue, because data protection is definitely in Europe is a big issue. And I think what we have to focus on in the future as well, definitely all the people in the field of innovation, is how can we combine the legal environment we're living in Europe in, and I think the same applies to a certain extent in the United States, with the new technologies, because a lot of the new technologies which are obviously used in authoritarian countries like China, it's not, from a legal perspective, it's not easy to implement them in Europe. And so I think we need to spend a lot of thought not only on the technological area, but how can we implement and use these things in the environment we are living in Europe.
You're absolutely right. I recall one of our startups called Kiana sort of normalizes the data of Saeed and Saeed's phone. So they track, there is, but they don't say who it is, but they can follow who I have been close to. And again, we don't have all of the answers, but as you mentioned, also blockchain has a good timestamp on it, so you cannot change the sequences of the events, and that is really, really important for tracking, who you've been in contact with and where you have been. But if I love to be a little think optimistic. When do you feel like Hawaii just opened up, like I believe less than 30 days ago, and from California, you need to take a test before you go to Hawaii, but tourism picked up incredibly well in Hawaii over the last 3 weeks. You know, when do you think the travel industry, your crystal ball says, will start picking up, both for pleasure as well as possibly for business?
I think July 2021. So I think we will need another 6 months where we will be in a difficult phase. But personally, and I always like to be at the airport on the first Saturday when the school holidays start. So which is usually the first Saturday in July. So my picture of the first Saturday in July 2021 is that I'm seeing 70, 80,000 people at the airport, and which would bring us to 70 or 80% of where we were in 2019. So I think there's a huge desire of people to travel. I mean, whenever I'm watching TV and I'm seeing all those beautiful cities, which are essentially empty right now, Venice, Paris, London, New York. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling the urge to visit these places again. So I'm personally optimistic that by summer 2021, we will be on the track to normality in this respect.
That will be great. You know, and, you know, at least from my point of view, I feel that, you know, vacation and tourism will come back faster than business travel. What is your thoughts about business travel?
No, I agree entirely. I think business travel, it will take longer. And personally, to a certain extent, I think it won't come back at all. But I think even in terms of business, I strongly feel, and even discussing here with you, it's great that we can discuss, and you're essentially on the other end of the world, and you're spending your early morning with us. But I think we all know that it feels very, very different having discussions like that in person. So I think we all learned about how great this technology we are using now is, but we see the limitations as well. So I think it's something very different to have meetings in person. So therefore, I'm sure even business travel will come back at one point. Maybe in internal meetings in multinational big corporations, they won't be live again, even in the future. But I think if you're an acquisition, if you have partners, I think if you're meeting colleagues, so I think I'm sure people look forward to meet colleagues in congresses again in the future. So I'm not worried about that. But yes, it will change, and I think in terms of business travel, I think long-haul business travel will come back. I think within Europe, I think for you probably you won't spend a whole day for a 60-minute meeting. So I think there will be limitations to the business travel, but definitely leisure travel, I think will be back by next summer. And speaking now about Vienna, I think Vienna is a great city. I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and our traffic was always leaning a bit more towards leisure traffic. So I think we could be back here quite soon.
Wonderful. And you know, again, I love your July time frame. I hope to hopefully come and visit you, and we stay at the airport together in July. But projecting a little bit longer term, you know, because your investments at the airport are, you know, infrastructure investment and, takes several years to plan, to build. What is your projection 3 to 5 years ahead?
I think to completely overcome the crisis and to be on the passenger levels we had before, I think it will take 4 or 5 years. So I would not be surprised to have in 25 or 26 the same level of passengers, which was 32 million we had in 2019. One mustn't forget we grew by 25% between 2017 and 2019. So we had huge growth in this period of time. But nevertheless, I mean, we were just about to invest 500 million euros in our terminal environment. And we planned a big extension to our main terminal, and we are still set to do this. It might be 2, 3, 4 years later, but those plans are now in the shelf. But we will take them out in a couple of years because in the end, it's our goal to improve the experience of our passengers in the future. And therefore, I'm convinced we're going to do these major investments. On the other hand, I think a completely different page is the development of the airport city. The airport city is not relying on passenger numbers, and I think the location of Vienna Airport in the eastern Austrian area is excellent. We are bang in the middle between Vienna and Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. So it takes you 20 minutes to the city center of Vienna, and it takes you 40 minutes to the city center of Slovakia. We are very close to Hungary. We are very close to the Czech Republic. And therefore, I think we, even in this crisis, we see the demand for office space, and our cooperation with the big innovation focus we have with our new Office Park 4 helps us, I think, to instigate this interest. So I hope that we will be in a position, regardless of what the passenger numbers are, to grow our airport city in the next couple of years.
Wonderful. I do say your location is incredible to do business in all of Europe, Eastern Europe, as well as the Western Europe. I believe you are also involved with a small airport in the Mediterranean, in Malta. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges they are going through, or you are going through with that airport? Is it a big difference between a destination like Malta versus Vienna?
Yes, we are involved in Malta. I personally spent 5 years in Malta being CEO of Malta Airport. We are actually involved in a very small airport in eastern Slovakia as well, in Košice. So from Vienna Airport, a hub in the center of Europe, to a 500,000 passenger airport in eastern Slovakia, we are used to run airports of all sorts. Malta saw major growth in the last 10 years. When I was there in 2017, 2011, we had between 3.3 million and 4 million passengers. In 2019, we had 7 million passengers. I think Malta is a great business location. Malta had GDP growth of 6 to 8% in the last 3 years, every year. So it was really booming. And I think the advantage is that they don't have that much of long haul travel. So it's more short haul. So we hope that it will come back next year. Right now they are in pretty much the same situation as we are, and with very significant reductions in passenger numbers. I think the major challenge for all countries in Europe is to find the right balance. So from opening up to lockdown, opening up again, and I think that's what they experienced as well. I think summer was relatively good for them, but then now numbers shot up again, and they've got a lot of limitations now as well. But I'm optimistic that next year Malta will come back. It's a great place for everybody who hasn't been there. Lots of history. Everybody speaks English, so it's very easy to communicate with the people. Very kind people. So I think it's really a great place. And as soon as traveling is easier again, I would urge everybody to go there for a couple of days.
Wonderful. It's a, you know, I recall I might have mentioned to you that I had a bottled water company in Malta with you know, with the Coca-Cola and the Heineken bottler. The family, I had a great experience every time I went to Malta, both personally and professionally. And I agree with you 100%. That is a great place. You know, Julian, it's been great talking to you. I don't know if, Ben, you have some questions from the audience that you would like to ask Julian.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Saeed. Yeah, thank you to both of us for this enriching conversation. I really enjoyed it, and from what I can read in the chat and what the messages I received, everyone in the audience really enjoyed it. And you can also see that in the amount of questions that we received. So, Julian, maybe I can start with a question with regard to cooperation in times of crises. So I'll just quote the question. Historically, airports and airlines have been at odds with one another for several reasons. How important is it for these two parties to collaborate with one another to create a more seamless experience for travelers?
Yeah, I think this is essentially that's the story of airports, of most airports, that you have one major customer, and it's very often a love-hate relation. We tried in the last 10 years to significantly improve our relation with Austrian Airlines. I think we've got an excellent relation with Austrian. But on the other hand, we've got 70 different airlines operating in Vienna, and they all have very different needs. So I think you always have to balance out the interest of your customers and the interest of your major customer. So I think we manage relatively well in Vienna to have a seamless travel experience. But what remains is, in the end, the passenger is the customer of the airline, and we are trying to align all the processes. But a lot of airlines have different processes, and we have to adjust our facilities so that they work for many different airlines. So I think this is a bit the conflicting interests we are working in. In the end, we've got 70 different airlines with 70 different procedures, sometimes 70 different procedures, and our infrastructure is to work for all of them.
Makes sense. Thank you. Actually, we also received a very interesting question regarding, I think that's especially in regard to the rapid testing, so the new antigen tests that you are running with Austrian Airlines. So what are you doing with the false positives for the tests? So people that are falsely identified as positive, and also what do you actually do with positive cases in general? Are they allowed to take the train back to their homes, or do they need to go directly into quarantine, or what's the procedure here?
Yeah, to be honest, we did not have false positives yet. So I think false positives are obviously a problem, or would be a problem. But so far we did not have this experience. I think in general, the costs which are incurred by false positives, but by positives as well, so the PCR test and so on, which follows, will be covered by an insurance Austrian Airlines and Lufthansa Group are having. So I think this is an excellent model Austrian developed. regarding in respect to the positives, they are handled like all other positives we come across at the airport. Immediately we get the doctor, and then it depends a lot where the passenger is coming from. So obviously, no, they should not go on the train back home. Either if they are on their own by car, they can go home. If they don't have a place to live in Vienna, we put them in the hotel at the airport, and they go into quarantine. But we had instances where we got transport for safe transport for corona positives at the airport. So as soon as we discover a positive case, obviously the doctor takes over and all the necessary safety measures are being taken to prevent that somebody else gets infected. And I think this is the beauty, I would say, of these quick tests. Their weakness is that if you have a low virus load, you might not get detected. But if you have a high virus load, these tests detect you. And so I think everybody who is found having a high virus load is great, because those people are not allowed to go through to security control to the gate. Those people are separated and they can go into quarantine.
Awesome, thank you. I mean, as you know, Plug and Play is all about open innovation and collaboration. So I want to ask you another question with regard to that. Did COVID-19 boost international collaboration on an airport level, especially on the topic of innovation and tech? And if yes, how did it?
To be honest, I would not say that COVID boosted cooperation in terms of innovation on an airport level. I think in general, one of the downsides of COVID, in my perspective, is that definitely in Europe, I think I mean, until a few months ago, there were no borders and everybody could move freely within the Schengen area in Europe. And now we are pushed back pretty much within the old national states. So I think in general, one of the problems I see that there is not enough international cooperation to fight the COVID-19 crisis. So I think there is cooperation, and I'm sitting on the board of ACI Europe, so the board representing all the airports in Europe, and there are a lot of exchange of views, but it's more on policy, it's more on lobbying, it's not that much on innovation. So I think yes, obviously we're exchanging our experience with the tests and everything, but yeah, I hope that this boost comes in the next few months. But right now, I think I've got the impression everybody's fighting COVID on their own to a certain extent.
Julian, I had a question to ask. About 2 weeks ago, I had a very interesting discussion with the CEO of Houston Airport. And, you know, he mentioned to me, of course, your biggest revenue comes from the number of passengers, and the airline collect that money and then share it with the airport. Or on your behalf, the airlines collect the money. He had an idea that if the airport can collect that money directly, you might be able to sell other services with it, because then you would have a direct relationship with the passenger and a payment system. Have this idea ever came up for you or for different airports?
I mean, this is something all airports struggle, that we don't have a direct relation with the passenger. We don't know the name. We know a lot about the behavior of our passengers, but not individually. What we are doing, I mean, we are selling, and there, in this respect, COVID was probably an opportunity. We are selling many more services relative to the passenger numbers than we did before. We always had a kind of VIP service, so that somebody would pick you up at the parking lot and helps you with the luggage and gets you through security and passport control. We are selling many more of these services, where we make sure that people have enough social distancing. We help them getting through all the processes in a completely safe way. So we're trying to build up this relationship. I think the problem is it's difficult. I mean, where do we have our touch points? We've got the touch points a lot with parking. We've got the touch points at security, but the passenger pays the airline and the airlines pays us for security. And then we've got the extra services. So what we are trying to develop is offer extra services. But apart from that, yeah, it would be great to have a more direct relationship. And we are trying to do this with technology, essentially, in terms of to boost sales in retail and so on. And many airlines, airports invested a lot in here, in new modes to sell to products to passengers. But I think we, as airports, we still have a far way to go there to in terms of getting the data from the passengers. I think this would be an area, because there was the question in terms of cooperation with airlines and airports. This is an area where I hear so many people mulling about that this should be the best area to cooperate in terms of retail, because the airline has the data, the airline has the access to the passenger, and the airport has the product and the facilities to offer the products. So far, I don't know of any example where this opportunity is really exploited. So this would be probably something where in times of crisis, airports and airlines can move closer and probably exploit this opportunity in the future.
That's great. Yes, I believe you know, the quality of the client, the passenger, is very high, and if somehow the airline or the airport can build a deeper relationship with the passenger, it can be of a great value creation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I don't know, Ben, if we are out of time, but I wanted to, Julian, thank you so much for your time. And, you know, I very much enjoyed your, you know, comments about the future of travel. And we really look forward to this vaccine, you know, turning the corner by having people be more positive and, you know, hopefully traveling safe. But it has been great talking to you. And I hope to see you soon, either in California or Vienna.
Thanks a lot. The pleasure is mine. It was really great talking to you. And yeah, looking forward to meet in person.
Thank you.
To both of you. We really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.